Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Canada once again, and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. Now, these guys are another relatively new addition to their local beer scene, and they seem like a pretty interesting company actually, because they started out as a distillery, then added brewing a little bit later on, which is the opposite way around from what many companies do actually, and their brewery seems to have a very, very good reputation as well. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've had many times before, one that's very popular at the moment, and one that this brewery is supposed to do really nicely actually. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. Definitely nice to introduce some new and different Canadian breweries to you here on Rampant Lion Reviews. But yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to the province of Ontario. We're going to go to a little place called Ayr, which is west of Hamilton, east of London, and to the south of Kitchener, so it's right in the countryside actually, and we are going to go for the first time to Willibald Farm Brewery, but these guys are also known as Willibald Distillery and Brewery. We should point that out as well. But this particular beer is called Three Hands. It comes in at 8.3% ABV, and this one is a double IPA. So yeah, this is one of a few Willibald beers that appeared here in Hong Kong over the last little while. This one was bought at Wine Rack, if I remember correctly. And there was this one along with a few paleos and regular IPAs, but you know, with the kind of cost that you're paying for beer here in Hong Kong, it's always kind of better value to go for the stronger ones. And you know, I just find the flavour profiles of these as well, I do enjoy the double IPAs a little bit more than the single IPAs, of course. So I thought this would be a nice place to start with Willibald Farm Brewery for our first review, and we'll see what appears from these guys here over the next little while. But yeah, 8.3% double IPA, this one, interesting hop bill in it as well, which we'll come to a little bit later. But let's crack on then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Three Hands. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Willibald Farm Brewery. This is the first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Canadian playlist, along with a number of other things that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, which is quite regularly these days when it comes to Canada, because we get good stuff here through from Canada through Hong Kong. And yeah, do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Willibald Farm Brewery, or Willibald Distillery and Brewery. I've still not decided which one I'm going to call the video, but anyway. So the Willibald Farm Brewery is based just to the east of Ayr, which you'll find in the province of Ontario, and this little town is triangulated by Hamilton to the east, London to the south, and then Kitchener to the north. And this company was founded back in 2017 by Cameron Formica, along with brothers Jordan and Nolan van der Heyden. So they started the company just after they finished university, and the first project was the distillery. But apparently they went down to the US to study distilling, and then they got their Ontario brewing and distilling license, and then ordered a 1,000 litre hybrid pot from Germany before they'd even kind of tried to produce anything. But they apparently thought about starting the brewery first, but it was their love of whiskey that pushed them down the distilling route more, and they also felt that in their region of Ontario there just weren't many distilleries, so they wanted to do something a little bit more unique. So they searched for a properly licensed property in Kitchener and Waterloo, but they really struggled to find this, and so the brewery and distillery can actually be found on the Van der Heyden family farm, and it's based in an old dairy barn because this was a dairy farm. But they started off producing gin, and soon they added whiskey to their repertoire, although of course this took a couple more years to actually produce because whiskey's got to age for about 3 years in the barrel before it's ready at minimum. And much of the grain that they use in their spirits is actually produced on site, but they're known for being quite innovative in the distilling side of things. The first gin they produced was a brown gin, which a lot of people didn't realise existed, something I wasn't sure about until I read about it either. But the name of this company is taken from the middle name of one of the Van der Heyden's grandfathers, and it was something that they just thought stuck and people seemed to like it, so they went for it for the company. But in 2018 they added a restaurant which focused on local produce, and then in 2019 they opened the brewery. So the current head brewer in the brewery is Joseph Freund, who is originally from the US, and he studied on the master brewing program at the Siebel Institute, which if I remember rightly is in Chicago, and then he worked for Jolly Pumpkin in Texas, Beavertown in London, Monkish over in California, and then Ale Farm in Denmark before he joined Willibald as their head brewer in 2019. But over the years they've continued to develop new recipes and expand the capacity of the brewery and the distillery, and as of July 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 160 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they've done quite a diverse array of things. And with Joseph having that pedigree, having worked for Beavertown, Monkish and Ale Farm, I've never really encountered Jolly Pumpkin right enough, but with those three breweries they are known for their IPAs, so that's probably the reason why a lot of these beers that they're producing are sort of hazy IPAs and things like that, because yeah, all three of those other breweries have a good reputation for those. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Willibald Farm Brewery and Distillery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. But from what I understand, this area in sort of southwestern Ontario, if you can say that, it's quite exciting for food produce at the moment because there's quite a few breweries down there, and yeah, a couple of distilleries and things like that as well. So yeah, hopefully somewhere I can go and visit at some point in the fairly near future. I do need to get back over to Canada and explore a little bit. But yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So as you can see, this one comes in a 473 milliliter can. The artwork on this one, I'm not sure what it's meant to kind of signify, if it's meant to be like what's the word again? Sukodu or something like that. That game, the Japanese game. That's it. Sudoku, that's it. Terrible brain. But yeah, plain silver top on the can there. Looks very nice there. You can see three hands. Willibald again on the back. It tells you a little bit about the beer. So this one, from what I gather, is a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and this one is hopped with Galaxy, Victoria's Secret and Amarillo. So some nice tropical hops in there, as well as the orangey character. So Galaxy and Victoria's Secret are of course from Australia. Galaxy is about 14% alpha acid. It's going to give you quite a lot of pungent mango, actually, quite a little bit of grapefruit as well, and lots of pineapple. Victoria's Secret is like the little sister almost of Galaxy, so quite similar notes there, but I think a bit more mango from that one normally, otherwise. And then you've got Amarillo in there, which is American. That's about 12% alpha acid, and it's going to give you that big oily orangey character. But yeah, a one American pint can, I believe I paid about 90 Hong Kong dollars for this, so that's about £9 sterling, somewhere in the region of like 10 euros, $11 American, something like that. I don't know what it would be in Canadian, in all honesty. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. The three hands, an 8.3% double IPA from Willibald Farm and Brewery over in Ayr, Ontario, Canada. I did like it that it was from Ayr as well, because quite a famous town in Scotland, that home of Rabbie Burns, although I was never really into poetry, I have to say. Didn't like studying at school. Didn't like studying English at school, I have to say. It's so boring. But yeah, anyway, let me just line that up so that my OCD is happy. But there we go. So we've got the majority of the beer out and into the glass at the moment then, and you can see this one's poured very, very nicely actually. So we've got about maybe 80% of the beer in the glass, and you can see that it's poured with just under a finger of a frothy white head there. So you can see some medium bubbles sitting on the surface of the liquid there. But yeah, lovely kind of frothy, creamy head on that one. That looks very, very nice. That's the nicest head I've seen on the New England IPAs that I've been reviewing over the last wee while, actually. But yeah, lovely looking head on this one. That's retaining quite nicely. In terms of the colour of this beer, this one's actually very, very light, like a kind of peach juice colour. I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what the appearance reminds me of. But yeah, lovely light kind of peach juice colour, this one. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But that can vary, of course, from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. Now, the level of haze in this one is pretty interesting as well. It looks to a degree to be a little bit soupier and gloopier, but it's a little bit hard to tell just because of how light and pale the beer is. But remember, in these beers, the level of haziness depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, and that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. But yeah, the way that this one goes together looks pretty nice, I have to say. Definitely one of the lighter looking New England hazies that I've seen. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. It looks pretty good, and you can see the head has just faded away a little bit, but it's leaving a nice kind of thicker foamy ring around the edge of the glass. But all in all, nothing really surprising about the appearance of this beer when you consider what style it is. So yeah, I don't think we need to say anything more about that. So let's have a little look at the aroma then and see how we go. We'll move on to the aroma section of the video. Yeah, so let's do this. Oh, that smells pretty nice actually. Yeah, it's giving you kind of everything you'd expect. You've got a lovely little bit of kind of bready backbone to this one. You've got a nice big green component in there, and you've also got the fruity character. This one, I should have just checked it. This was packaged in December 2023. I was just going to say that because you could smell a little bit of the oaty dryness in this one. And you know, as I've said on the channel many a time before, when it comes to New England IPAs, when we talk about the oats in these beers, usually they can be a good indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. So essentially, the drier the oats taste and smell, the older the beer is, the creamier they are, the fresher the beer is. So with this one, you can smell a wee bit with it. At this point, it is 6 months old. I've only had this beer actually I think I only bought it maybe about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, with this one you can smell the oats are a little bit drier in this one. That comes out of the aroma at you right away. So just be aware of that. It's a very rough measure, if you like, and it's a little bit harder with North American oats, because North American oats tend to be a little bit more kind of porridgey than European oats, which are a bit creamier almost. So yeah, you can smell a little bit of the dryness of the oaty character coming out of this one, which tells you the beer is a little bit older. But normally with New England IPAs, you want to drink these within like, you know, 6 months or so. The West Coast IPAs can last a little bit longer than that, but you know, with IPAs you do want them fresh. But this one was canned in December 2019. We're drinking it at the very 2023. We're drinking it at the very start of July 2024, so it should still be fine. This one should still be fine, but obviously not at its freshest. We'll keep that in mind. But yeah, let's just break down the aroma of this one then and describe it a wee bit more in depth. So for me, when it comes to IPAs, New England IPAs, I think there's 6 elements to think about. So you've got your kind of farmhousey yeasty character, your rye lean and grainy side of things, and those are a bit more common in American brewed or North American brewed New England IPAs. Then you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also your sweeter side of things. Now for me, this beer actually comes across in its malty and yeasty character as being quite well balanced. You've got obviously you've got a lot of barley malt in this one. You can smell a little bit of the bitiness from the wheat in the back of the nose. The oats are quite apparent in this one as well, and it does have a little degree of sweetness to it. And you know, 8.3% ABV, you would expect a little bit of that boozy sweetness. But yeah, the way that all of it goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So So, I think this one is going to be quite interesting to try actually. I do like the hops in this as well. So I'm curious to see what this combination is going to have in store for us. But the backbone of this beer then, to break the aroma down for you, you've got a nice little bit of like a fresh white bready bread crust in there. So you can smell that right away. There's a little bit of like a, there is a little bit of, I would say, woody character in there, and also a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker. Yeah, there's a little bit of woodiness, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker for sure. But those are quite, those elements take a little bit of a back seat, I would say. Yeah, so white bready bread crust, little bit of woodiness in there, a little bit of cracker. Then on top of that, you're getting lots of bready notes. So yeah, definitely getting a little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character. This one, you can smell there's a little bit of a more grainy bready note coming out of this one, which is quite nice. So a little bit of a grainy bready character in there, but a lot of white bread. And the white bready notes that come out of this beer are almost quite crackery and quite woody in a sense. It smells like a very farmhousey, sort of small batch baked bread almost. But yeah, you can smell a bit of the wheaty character in there. Like I said, there's a bit of a bitey or wheaty note at the back of the nose. But as I say, American wheat, North American wheat rather, is not as bitey and not as dry as European wheat. I think that's definitely safe to say. That was something that I really discovered when I was in the US over the summer, actually trying all of these beers. But yeah, the way this beer goes together on the malty side of things is pretty nice. But above all of that, you start to get the oats, and as I say, there are some elements of creaminess coming out of the oaty side of this beer, but you're getting quite a little bit of the dryness because the beer is hitting that 6-month-old mark. As I say, it should still be pretty good. So yeah, you're getting a mix of things from the oaty character in there, and as I say, the North American oats are just that little bit more kind of porridgey, if you like, than the European oats, which come across as more creamy in these kind of beers. There's a little touch of sweetness to this one, as I said, some kind of Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy type character, and maybe a little bit of a biscuit, you know, McVitie's digestive biscuit and things like that. But yeah, all in all, the aroma of this beer is pretty nice on the malty and yeasty side of things. I think the yeasty side of the beer in the back of the nose is more kind of crackery and woody and stuff like that for sure. But yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things then, and the green component. So, as I've explained on the channel many a time before, there are 3 types of hoppings when it comes to IPAs. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness, and well, pretty much all of your bitterness, and a deeper, danker flavour and aroma. You've got dry hopping, which takes place in the latter half hour of your wort boil, assuming you've got a 90-minute wort boil, of course, which is there or thereabouts for most IPAs. But yeah, that gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it's going to contribute to a brighter green component. But then it's you've also got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that one is going to give you all flavour and aroma, and again a brighter green component. So New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why the West Coast IPA has that deeper, danker, more bitter quality to it. But yeah, the way that this one goes together in that sense is quite nice. It's quite a bright green component in this one, as you'd expect. There's a little touch of earthiness in there, but not too much. Most of the green component is quite bright and floral as well. You can smell it a little bit in the hops, that you've got that wee bit more dankness coming out of this one, and that again is a product of the fact that the beer's just a little bit older. So yeah, you've got that deeper and danker floral aromaticity coming out to this one, as well as a little bit of spiciness. You've also got a little bit of a grassy, zesty character to this one, which I think all 3 hops are capable of giving you, but I think probably the Amarillo is the one that's going to do it most. And then yeah, on the fruity side of things, you've got what you expect from these hops. There's a big, big oily orange presence from the Amarillo, and behind that, you're getting the pineapple, which I would say comes mostly from the Gallic side, juicy mango, and then you've got those elements. There's a little bit of peach sharpness in there, and then you've also got that you've got that kind of peachy sharpness coming out of this one, and also a little bit of a kind of grapefruity character as well. So yeah, the way the aroma goes together in this beer, I think, is pretty nice. So yeah, I do like how everything in this beer just kind of pieces together. I think it's going to be quite an interesting one to try, and you can tell that it is from the aroma. And when I think about the other Canadian breweries that I've had in recent times, you can tell this one's going to be pretty damn solid. So yeah, looking forward to this, definitely. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Three Hands, a double IPA at 8.3% ABV from Willibald Farm Brewery and Willibald Distillery and Brewery. Still need to decide the name of this video, but this one comes to you from Ayr, Ontario, over in Canada. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh, that's pretty nice. That is pretty nice. That's held up pretty well, actually. Ooh. And first impression is that it's a slightly more bitter New England double IPA for sure. But I think this is well done, so thumbs up to them. Yeah, it's interesting, this one. Let me just see, we're just going to put the rest of it in and get the kind of sediment and things. It does, I think because of the age, this one is showing a little bit more of a kind of floral aromatic spice and things like that. It is giving you that wee bit more bitterness, but we'll just make sure we've got all of the kind of sediment and things into the glass there, because then yeah, you should get a more kind of balanced flavour. Just see, does that change the aroma at all? It does actually make it feel a little bit thicker and a little bit creamier. You're getting more of the kind of smooth oaty character out of this one, and I think you can see a bit of difference in the appearance there as well. So let's taste that again. Yeah, it does balance it out just that little bit more. Yeah. So I think with this one, just again, because of the age and because of the fact that it's been refrigerated all the time, I think there was a wee bit of sediment in this, and you could just taste a little bit more kind of floral aromatic spice and dankness and things like that. And it had this almost like slightly off flavour at the back of the palate, just like this, like almost like a burned graininess. But yeah, when you put everything else in it, it just balances the beer out. So obviously some of the wheat and the oats and stuff had sedimented in. Understand? But yeah, if you get everything out into the glass, it's pretty it is pretty solid at this point. But yeah, this beer's quite interesting because it does have a little bit more of a kind of grainy backbone to it. So you will get a wee bit of an almost like rye kind of grainy type character coming out of this one. And they are, of course, I'm not sure if some of the grains that they're, I know there's a lot of the grains they produce are being used in the spirits, but I'm not sure if they're using some of their own grains in the beer yet, because you have to remember this, like rye, wheat and oats and stuff like this that are grown in different places will taste different because you've got different soil profiles and different water profiles. We did a lot of this when I studied chemistry at university. It's quite interesting stuff actually. But yeah, you can taste there's a little bit of a more sort of grainy and slightly earthy vibe to this New England IPA, and I wonder if it's just because they're using some of their own grains. So yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, it kind of gives you everything you'd expect of the style of this. You've got a nice kind of big bready malt base in there, a bit more graininess to it as we've said, and you've got the big oily kind of sweet juicy fruity characters in there, and then the nice big green component. So yeah, let's break this beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth as we always do. We'll start on that middle third of the palate then. So, middle third of your palate, the backbone of the beer, we have a little bit of that kind of slightly toasty, we've got a little bit of that kind of toasty, well-fired, I don't know, no, not well-fired, more of a toasty, brown bready bread crust backbone there. As you go further forward on it, you can feel there's a little bit of woodiness there, then you've got a wee touch of Jacob's cream cracker above it, and then you have more of a wholemeal brown bready sort of vibe to this one. So yeah, you can feel that grainy wholemeal brown bready character in there, and as I say, you get more and more graininess out of this one into the aftertaste. I don't know, could you go as far as saying rye bread with this one? I do wonder if there's a wee bit of rye in the base with this beer. It reminds me of the Alchemist. It does remind me of the Alchemist beers that I had back in the day from New England. Because yeah, I think there might be a wee bit of rye in this one, because I know those had rye in it. But yeah, above that you get like a smoother, almost like wholemeal brown bready character to the beer, and then above that you can feel the softer fresh white bready character. And those two are the barley malt layers, of course, but then above that you can feel the wheat. You've got that denser and almost slightly spicy white bready character coming out of the beer, which I do like as well. So yeah, more of a dense white bready character coming out from the wheaty side of things there. So as I've said before, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So on that middle third of your palate, you can definitely feel with the wheaty side of things, you've got more bitiness further back on the palate there. Then as you move further forward, you start to get that more kind of smooth character you start to get that smoother character out of the wheat, which is interesting. But above that, of course, you start to get the oaty side of the beer. So if you go down that middle line of your tongue, you can feel there's a nice sort of creamy oaty character to this one. And as you move further out from that, as you move further out from the middle line of your palate, you can feel you get a little bit more of a kind of dry oaty character to this one as well. As I say, the dryness of the oats in these beers comes out a little bit more as they get that little bit older. But yeah, in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's a little circle there with a wee bit of a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch, and that is of course the boozy side of the beer. But there's a little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit coming out of this one. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is quite interesting. There's a little bit of woodiness and graininess. I think that's what pushes its way out of the middle third of your palate in this beer. So yeah, the way all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is really, really nice. So it's a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so I think we can move on to the back third of the palate then. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, the kind of rye bread in the base, the sort of wholemeal brown bread in the middle, the white bread on top, and then a wee bit of wheaty bitiness there. But the base of that back third of your palate, yeah, you can feel there's a little bit of that kind of bread crusty graininess in there. You've got the cracker above that, the rye bready layer, again that feels a little bit taller, lighter, more airy, more dry. Same with the brown bready layer above that, then the white bready layer, and you can feel the wheat just kind of creeping over the top of that there and giving you that little bit more bitiness. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is nice. And then you've got all the yeasty character sitting on top of that as well. So let's have a little look at the yeasty side of things with this beer then. So, yeasty side of this beer. In the centre of the yeasty character, I would say that you've actually got a little bit of a really grainy mix of that sort of grainy mix of rye bread and wholemeal brown bread in there. And around the edge of it, you've got this sweeter and more dense white bready character, then a little bit of a crackery bread crust around the very edge. And as I say, all of that sits on top of the white bready, the sort of wheaty bitiness on top of the malty side of things. So yeah, the yeasty character in this beer, I think, does linger into the aftertaste. This is definitely more of a yeasty and sort of grainy leaning New England double IPA in my opinion. So yeah, definitely you can feel that the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together in this one, I think, is really, really nicely done. So I think that's everything about the malty and yeasty side of the beer then. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things. Back corners of the palate, you're definitely getting a little bit of earthiness out of this one. Then as you move further forward, it's a little bit herbal, but yeah, as you go further and further forward along the sides of your palate, it's more about the floral aromaticity. There's a little bit of floral aromatic spice in there, which I think is great. So yeah, big floral aromatic spicy sort of thing in there. And yeah, it gets a little bit of a deeper, danker kind of character to it as well. So yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. And yeah, I do really like how that pieces together in this one. There's a wee touch of zestiness in there. But let's look at that front third of your palate then and the fruity side of things. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a bready build-up in there. I don't think you've got quite as much rye bready character in there. I think it's more of a kind of sweeter wholemeal brown bread, a little bit of a more white bready character, and then a wee bit of wheaty bitiness on top of that. But the base of the front third of your palate, I think, has a little bit more you've got a little bit more of a kind of wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there. Above that, yeah, the wholemeal brown bread again, the white bread, and you can feel the dense wheat. And then above that, you've got that nice oily, you've got that nice kind of oily bubble where all the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that fruity side of things then. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer for me, it's quite, yeah, I would say, fruity side of this one, if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you're definitely getting more of that kind of stronger, grapefruity sort of character out of the beer. So yeah, stronger grapefruity character out of it. As you move further forward from that, you start to get the tropical notes. I think the grapefruit in this one's most likely to come from the Galaxy, but the Victoria's Secret can give you a bit of that too. But yeah, as you move further forward from that, there's a wee bit of peach. You are getting softer passion fruit as well, but then juicy mango, and then right in the middle of that front third of your palate, it's all about the apricots and a bit of the pineapple, of course. But the front half of the front third of your tongue is all about that more oily, zesty orange, which is the Amarillo, of course. So yeah, I think the Galaxy and the Victoria's Secret are sitting further back on that that front third of your palate, sorry, and then the more oily orange Amarillo characters from this one are sitting on the front half of that front third of your tongue. So yeah, the way that that goes together in this one, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, the way that the fruity side of this beer goes together, I think, is quite nice. I do like the orangey leaning nature that it has. I'm a sucker for more orangey leaning IPAs, be that on the New England side of things or on the more West Coasty side of things. But yeah, I think this one has been done quite nicely in that regard. But yeah, I think we've covered everything we need to about the flavour of this beer, in honesty, so we can round off this review with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer is kind of top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation, it's quite smooth in this one. It has got a wee bit of crispness to it. I think the can in this one, you can just feel, I think it's been, because it's that little bit older, you do get a wee bit more carbonation and crispness and stuff out of it. But yeah, quite a smooth, creamy leaning, but a little bit bitey New England double IPA, this one. I think in terms of its IBU count, I think this one feels as if it's maybe 40-ish or 50-ish. Some of that, again, might be due to the age, because you will get that more kind of spicy green component coming out of the beer the longer it's left. So yeah, there's a wee bit of that to consider too. But yeah, on top of that, with this beer, you've got that grainy backbone, and you get more of that yeasty graininess out of the beer into the aftertaste, which is interesting. That's quite different from a number of the other New Englands we've had in recent times. The malt base, as we said, yeah, smoothness in the middle from the bread, little bit of kind of bite, smoothness and creaminess and sweetness sitting on top of it. You've got that more, yeah, you've got that big sort of floral spiciness to it as well. Then you've got the lovely kind of juicy, fruity character coming out of this beer too. So all in all, some really interesting things going on with this particular beer, I would say. But yeah, mix of stronger citrusy fruit in this one, I think. You've got the grapefruit, the softer tropical fruit, and that more oily, zesty orange. So all in all, quite an interesting New England double IPA, this one. I would be curious to try them a little bit fresher next time, so I'll keep an eye for the Willibald stuff appearing. But still, very, very solid beer, this one, and a good introduction to Willibald Farm Brewery, especially if they're producing some of the grains that are malted for this beer themselves. I think that's pretty interesting. But yeah, definitely more of a kind of rye bready, grainy and yeasty New England double IPA for me. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Three Hands, an 8.3% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Willibald Farm Brewery in Ayr, Ontario, over in Canada. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Willibald Brewery and Distillery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slange, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Willibald's social media, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao just now.